Wendy was a language coach out of California. She taught kids and adults Mandarin. And the real problem that she was having is that there were so many people moving into California that also wanted to teach kids and adults Mandarin. However, she was charging $50 to $80 an hour. And these people wanted to charge $30 to $40 an hour, like a lot of new businesses, to get their first clients, to get their first success stories. More than that, she had to also deal with the fact that we now live in this wonderful global economy. And because of that, she was dealing with people in China advertising $12 an hour education directly from cities in China. Worse than that, thanks to our friends in Silicon Valley, she also had to deal with the fact that there were these new technologies where I'll teach you Mandarin, you teach me English, and we just won't charge each other anything at all. So she was having to compete against free. And she came to me and she said, Matt, how do I compete in this crowded market where really all I've got to compete on is price? She came to me for sales advice. And I said, Wendy, what we really need to do is we need to look at how we can avoid the battle altogether. So what I did is I started to look at all of the clients Wendy worked with, and she worked with hundreds of clients over the years. But what I found is there were two people specifically, and it really was only two. These were executives being relocated across to China. And she helped them with three other things. The first thing she helped them with was this concept called galaxy. Now for us, when I say galaxy, you think I mean outer space, right? It means the same to me in Australia, but in China, that's actually the Chinese word for rapport. So in China, it's very, very different the way a sales relationship works. I mean, in the Western world, we've all had this experience, right? We're trying to sell a house or to do a luxury build, and we might meet with somebody for 45 minutes to an hour, and at the end of that conversation, we're going to ask, well, if we're really bad at sales, we're going to ask, so would you like to move forward? And they're going to respond with yes, no, or everyone's favorite. Let me think about it, right? So a week from now, I might reach back out to them and I'll say, so what about now? Do you want to move forward? And if they still say they want to think about it, I know my chances of getting that sale are going down and down, right? Well, in China, it's very different. They're going to want to meet with you 5 or 6 times before they even discuss business. They're probably going to want to see you drunk over karaoke once or twice. It's just the kind of people they are, and here's why. They're not talking about transactional 12 or 24-month deals like we do in the Western world. They're talking about 50 to 100-year contracts. I mean, this is longer than a lot of people's careers and lifetimes. And because of that, they want to know the kind of person they're getting into bed with, who they're going to be working with for that long period of time. I mean, a contract is not worth the words it's written on when you're talking about a relationship for that long. So she helped them understand that. The second thing she helped them understand was the difference between e-commerce in China and e-commerce in the Western world. And the third thing, probably the most important, she helped them understand the importance of respect. Like, learning the language isn't enough. You've got to reduce your accent. Otherwise, they'll see it as disrespectful. It's very similar to how somebody hands a business card out and the respect that's required in China versus here. We've all been to networking events. What do we do in the Western world where somebody hands you a business card? We'll continue talking, right? We'll take it, we'll put it in our pocket, and then later we'll get home and we'll be like, who was this Matthew Pollard dude anyway? Maybe we'll pull out a pen and we'll write on the back of the card the guy I was speaking to that talks about marketing. If you do that in China, that's an atrocity. You know, I spoke just about a year ago at the Electrolux 100 Vice President Summit. Now, these are people that all command audiences of 100, if not 1,000 staff each. And every time they got a business card, when I handed it to them, they would hold it, they would cherish it, they'd look at all the details on the front before flipping it over, looking at all the details on the back, then pulling out a card case, slotting it in, bowing slightly, and then continuing the conversation. Anything less than that is considered disrespectful. I said, Wendy, what are you teaching these people? It's so much more than just language consultation. You know, what are you doing? And she goes, they're just a couple of things. I'm just trying to help them. Now, how many times when we're negotiating building contracts are we going to do so much more for them than what we've spoken about? But we don't mention that during the sales activity, right? I said, Wendy, you're stuck in your functional skill. Is it fair to assume as a result of the assistance you're giving these people, they're going to be more successful when they get to China? She responded, well, yeah, I mean, I hope so. I mean, that's the point. I said, great. So why don't we call you the China Success Coach? Forget about Mandarin. That's a long spiral to the bottom where the person that gets the deal loses because they've charged much less than what they should have. Instead, we created a 5-week intensive that worked with the executive, the spouse, and any children being relocated across to China. Now, why the spouse and their children? Well, firstly, we're in business. If we sell to more people, we can charge more money, right? But secondly, think about it. You're an executive being relocated across to China. How terrifying is that? And what do you think the chances of you being successful are if your kids aren't being successful, if your family members aren't being successful? It's important that the entire family unit is successful when they get there. So we crafted this 5-week program, and I said, what do you think of this idea? And she said, well, I love the idea, but who am I going to sell it to? I said, well, who do you think your ideal client is? She said, well, obviously the executive. And I said, well, yeah, the executive is a great candidate. When I moved from Australia to the United States, I was terrified, and people here still speak the same language. But that's not your ideal client. She said, well, obviously the corporation would pay. And I said, yeah, a lot of times the corporation has tens of thousands, if not hundreds or millions of dollars riding on a successful executive getting there and closing deals. But that's not your ideal client. Frustrated, she looks at me and she says, well, who then? I said, your ideal client is the immigration attorney. She looked at me puzzled. I said, well, think about it. When I moved from Australia to the United States, the first thing I had to do was get a visa, right? Then I had to get a green card. Every time I had to go through an immigration attorney. I said, that's your ideal client. For those that don't understand that marketplace at all, the immigration market is really, really different. They go out and they hustle to find clients, and they'd be lucky to charge $5,000 to $7,000 for doing a visa or a green card. But that's not profit. They've got to go through all the bureaucracy, all the paperwork, and all the costs of finding a client just to get to work with somebody. They'd be lucky to make $3,000 on completion of these visas and green cards. I said, so just go and offer them the opportunity that if they give you a successful applicant, you'll give them $3,000. So she started approaching immigration attorneys, and she started introducing the idea, and they thought it was amazing. They were like, double my profit? What have I got to say? And she said, all you've got to say is, congratulations, you've now got your visa. Now, I just want to double check, are you as ready as possible to be relocated across to China? And they'd say, yeah, no, I think we're good. We've got our visa now, thank you. We're learning the language. Kids are getting pretty good at it too. We've organized our place over there. I think we're set. And they'd simply respond, there's actually a lot more to it than that. I think you need to speak to the China success coach. Wendy would then get on the phone to the easiest sale in the world. These people were recommended by their immigration attorney. They were terrified to go, and their organizations were motivated to pay. And Wendy got to charge $30,000 for this. So to put that in perspective, instead of struggling every single day to charge $50 to $80 an hour, competing in a crowded marketplace, she got to make $27,000 after she paid the attorney for the easiest sale in the world. That's the power of a differentiated and unified message. See, so many people will look at the tactical things. If Wendy had to focus just on the tactics of learning how to sell more effectively, she would have already lost. Sure, I could have showed her some tactics to go out and be better at selling, but at the end of the day, she was still competing like for like against other people that were charging less than her. We've got to stop competing on features, on price, on discounts. How many times do we fill our customers' head full of jargon that they don't even understand? These days, people are looking for a message that they identify with, and for that, they'll pay a premium. So what you've got to ask yourself is, what's yours? What you need to be thinking about are, what are the unique benefits that you provide outside the scope of your functional skill? Now, every time I meet with a builder, they say, well, no, what I do is pretty standard to what everybody else does. That's not true. I've worked with so many builders, and there's always something unique about them. Everybody has unique experiences that perfectly qualify them to help different people with different things. They've got amazing skills. They're just so used to commoditizing themselves as like for like, and it ends up in this conversation about price and how much per square meter. And then you've got to ask yourself, what is the higher level benefit of that? See, for Wendy, it was Galaxy, e-commerce, and respect. The higher level benefit was China's success. For me, I'm a branding expert, I'm a sales strategist, I'm a social media expert, I'm a master in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, I'm a business coach, I'm so many things. Nobody cares. They don't care how hard it was for me to learn these things, and they don't care how many years I spent learning them. But when I say I'm the rapid growth guy, I work with organizations, large and small, to obtain rapid growth. The simplicity of that message gets me heard in a crowded marketplace. So many times I hear people trying to articulate what they do. They go to a networking event and people ask what they do and they say, oh, I'm a custom builder. And then they say, oh, no, I'm not looking for that, or I have a custom builder. And all of a sudden we're feeling like we're pushing things down people's throats, trying to convince them why we're different. I go to a networking event and people ask me what I do. I say, I'm the rapid growth guy. People, I've never heard that before. And now I have an invitation from them to explain what it is exactly that I do. Now, when I work with builders, so many times I've seen, again, that they're saying that there's nothing that separates them. Then we find out that they're amazing at woodwork and they put feature pieces in every one of the homes that they do. Or they specialize in working on specific lakes that no one else has the knowledge that they have. Everybody has unique skills. But generally, they focus on the things that everybody else does.